the Trump tourney tracker, and we're looking at day 233 in the Trump administration and the authoritarian creep that's happened in the last 24 hours. As always, with the amazing Olga Lautman of the Trump tourney tracker and Unmasking Russia. Hi, Olga. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm exhausted, but here. How are you?
Exhausted. There's a lot of news and a lot of work to be done right now because there is so much going on across the news spectrum. And of course, the big news today is what looked like a deliberate attack on Poland, as Poland is now becoming the first NATO member to invoke Article 4 after Allied forces shot down Russian drones over Polish territory, marking the first direct NATO engagement of Russian military assets over member soil. So this is a very significant thing, obviously, deliberately attacking NATO country with drones. And this doesn't seem like an accident at all.
No, it's not. And partly why I'm so tired, because I was up until probably 4 a.m. watching this and checking Russian chatter and monitoring Ukrainian news and talking to friends in Poland to see what's happening on there and like what they're finding out. This was absolutely, definitely intentional. Russia, has breached Poland's territory a few times prior with one drone falling, two drones. But this is, 19 plus drones that flew deep into Poland. And that's it. It is incredible, very predictable. And yesterday, Julie and I had an emergency live at night over this as this news was breaking in Ukrainian press before it got to American press, because it was the Ukrainian military who warned Poland that there were drones headed towards Polish territory. And, we were just sitting and watching this unfold. And I'm like, this is predictable. My only question was, what did Trump and Putin discuss at Alaska that since this, Russia has, decided to escalate even more so? Because in the past, since the Alaska summit, Russia hit an American factory in Ukraine, hit the British and EU buildings in Ukraine. Yesterday, hours before this, there was an arson attack in Germany against a power station that took out electricity for around 40,000 households. Then you had this happen. You had von der Leyen's, the EU
Assassination
commissioners,
attempt.
plane targeted with GPS jamming. So you have all these things escalating. And also there were surveillance drones over Germany that are tracking U.S. activity and movement of weapons towards Ukraine. All of this is happening within since the Alaska summit, escalating.
And the drawdown of American troops, NATO troops as well, around those countries around Russia's borders. So, including Poland, but also Lithuania, Latvia, and all those other, Estonia. So we're now talking about what you're suggesting here is a coordinated a permission for Putin to do this from Donald Trump. Is that what you're saying is happening?
I am not saying that there's coordinated, but I think someone really should look into it, because since the summit, things have really went, not just in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're talking about NATO countries.
Mm-hmm.
The EU commissioner, things have really, really escalated. And just, because I work on the region, people need to understand that Russia, within the next few days, is starting the Zapad military exercises in Belarus. The last time they had these military exercises, they used them as cover to move military troops and equipment that were then used to, launch the full-scale invasion against Ukraine.
I remember that.
So we now also have this. The fact that these drone movements attack into Poland is happening right as Russia is preparing the Zapad games. this is also extremely concerning.
It is extremely concerning. Of course, this Ukraine was not a NATO country, is not a NATO country. Poland is. And when you've got, the Dutch F-35s and the Polish F-16s were intercepted to destroy these drones, or at least some of these drones, before they hit targets in Poland, what you still are seeing is an absence of an American response, whether it's through NATO or anything else. Where America is part of NATO, obviously, and has to respond to an attack on any country that belongs to NATO. And Donald Trump has been quite quiet on this. I think maybe he's posted one thing on Truth Social, which is kind of unbelievable. I'm not even sure it was him. But other than that, we've not had an American response to this major provocation by Russia against a NATO country. And that is unthinkable, really.
And, yesterday, again, I was up so late, so forgive me, I can't even put my thoughts together. But that was one of the things I went off on social media. And today I wrote an article on unmasking Russia about this attack on Poland. The most egregious thing, besides what Russia is doing, is that Pete Hegseth, who's, supposedly our defense secretary, Marco Rubio, who's supposedly our secretary of state, that they were dining at a steakhouse.
Mm-hmm.
They were there for hours. And my last post was exactly when they left. This was close to 3 or maybe even 3.5 hours after the first drones entered Polish airspace. And so you have the top leadership. Their Twitter accounts are silent, although Vance did post something about immigration, his rants. You have there's no official statement coming out of the U.S. government, and they're sitting and fucking eating. And no one thought it would be a good idea to wow, a NATO country's under attack. Maybe we should wrap up this meal and, go to the Situation Room and deal with what is happening.
They must have known before. They must have had some warning. Yeah.
Any president, can you imagine any Republican, Democrat, any president sitting through an attack on a NATO country sitting and eating dinner?
Absolutely not, because of course an attack on any country in NATO is an attack on the United States. The Prime Minister Donald Tusk of Poland said this situation brings us to the closest we have been to open conflict since World War II. And that's why he's formally invoked Article 4. Now, that means there will be mandatory NATO consultations, but not much more. I mean, there's no guarantee yet that Article 5 gets triggered, and that's that they will come to their defense. But it will be interesting to see what America's response is to this invocation of Article 4. Will they actually respond?
Well, the meetings are in Brussels right now. They're in the middle of the meetings. It was invoked overnight, our time, probably 4 or 5 a.m. our time, East Coast, and the meeting, they convened in Brussels. We'll see where this goes. I mean, frankly, like I said, I warned a year ago, I wrote an article that should Trump come back to power, that NATO is in dire circumstances and we'll be lucky if the alliance survives. And I will repeat it again. And Europe should have really been focused on, strengthening their defense. And as I've been saying on this tyranny tracker, I think since we started it, that they need to, at a minimum, not, be prepared that we won't be there for Europe. At a maximum, they actually need to, write up defense plans in the case we try to invade Greenland or any other NATO country. So, I mean, Europe really needs to wake up and not rely on the U.S. because under Trump, I mean, this is what I can't tell you how stark this image is of what was happening in Poland and these people dining in a steakhouse.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then I checked Russian media, and Russia's main story on their homepage for hours as this attack is unfolding is that the Pentagon is cutting their budget to Eastern Europe by 15 times.
Right.
This was their main story
Well, because
on the whole
that's what
button.
Trump's real reaction to this is to cut the budget, right? I mean, that's what he's decided to do in the midst of these threatening attacks by Russia against Poland. The EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas called the violations intentional, not accidental, and the most serious European airspace violation by Russia since the war began. It clearly is. This is a major international crisis, and if the United States continues to just draw down its troops in that area, it's an indication that they are not interested in supporting any country that's under attack by Russia, which, is in line with what Donald Trump said during his election campaign, that he would let Russia do whatever the hell it wanted. Well, it seems like he's letting them do that. We'll keep watching this, and thanks to you and Julie for your coverage on Substack last night. It sounds like an exceptional effort. Thank you so much for that. Moving to the next story, CBS News has appointed a guy named Kenneth Weinstein as the CBS News ombudsman. He represents a chilling example of media capture through regulatory coercion achieved without traditional authoritarian violence. But that's a very complicated way of saying it. But this is a position that's mandated as a condition of the FCC's approval of Paramount's $8.4 billion merger with Skydance. But this guy has no history and no awareness of newsrooms or anything like that. He's a former ambassador under the Trump administration to, which country was it again? Nominee.
Japan.
So Japan. Right. But I mean, other than that, he's not really qualified for this gig. Yet here he is getting it.
Yeah, I mean, this is from trying to take over media, and using our tax-funded agencies to go after media, to put these frivolous lawsuits. And I said before, it's the same thing what he's doing with universities. He's trying to gain control of really independent institutions, in order to put them under his control. And it's definitely worrying. And I think there's which is your next story?
The next story is going to be ICE deploys mass surveillance infrastructure. Because just a couple of things to mention here on CBS. One of the things that Oracle is planning to own or trying to own, I don't know if they've succeeded in this ownership takeover yet, is TikTok. And so what they're building, along with a state media run through CBS News and through the various networks that CBS runs and the affiliates that CBS runs, is a venture that will include TikTok, one of the most influential and surveillance-driven social media companies in the world. And that really is where, you wonder how serious and devious their attempts to take over the media through CBS News is.
Yeah, and all you have to do, you don't have to look far. They're using the Russian playbook for everything else. And if you look in Russia right now, you can't even call into the country. WhatsApp is not functioning. They shut it down mid August. What else? I forgot. Oh, Telegram is not functioning overseas.
Oh, really?
They're basically as far as to make phone calls. They're basically disabling any kind of communications and launching their own super app, where they want everyone, to use this specific app, which is under the control of security services, although Telegram, I'd argue, was created by security services.
Mm-hmm.
But all you have to do is look at the Russian playbook. I mean, they have full control of social media, the propagandist receiver list, which is the same tactics I see here. I mean, it's frankly frightening, because this is not, even that these propagandists are coordinating with Russia. They just learn the same tactics, and you see whatever the story that they want to push that day, you see them literally every single one in lockstep pushing that same narrative.
Right.
So
that's where we're heading. The next story is about ICE. ICE has awarded $9.2 million contract to Clearview AI. That includes the $3.7 million already spent to expand its use of facial recognition. Procurement records say that tech will be used to investigate child exploitation and assaults against law enforcement officers, a charge that ICE has often exaggerated or misrepresented during the crackdowns. But there's much more to the Clearview. I mean, it's a very controversial company.
it is a very controversial company, and this is now we see, Trump's agencies using these tools to create their, and not even create, to now enforce their surveillance state. They were fusing all the data before the past several months from all the agencies, and now you see, them doing this. And I keep saying, I mean, today it's a test case for immigrants are the test case. Tomorrow it's going to be all of us. And this is something we really should push back, especially within our states, because we have a way of, reaching out to our state members, politicians, and telling them to either strengthen their Privacy Act laws or create them to meet this, because this is extremely worrying what they're doing.
Yeah, it is. In Clearview, its history, it came out of the right wing, came out of the Bannon right wing. It's really kind of racist in the way it's formulated, in the way it's compiled. So it's been rejected by a lot of people over the years because it is it has such a racist backbone to it. So it's really interesting, as we look at the Supreme Court's decision earlier this week to certain types of racial profiling, I guess you could call it that. Now you've got this Clearview AI, which is a facial recognition with a racial bias built into it. It's not hard to see how these things might connect.
Yeah, and like I keep saying, all of this is being tested on the vulnerable groups before it expands to all of us. And if we can push back now, then we're not going to have to wait till it's too late and it's targeting any of us. Because not just Clearview, they're using the license plate reader, Flock, I believe it is. They're using a whole set of tools now to carry out their extremist agenda. And it's only a matter of time till it, expands.
Yeah, and GPS monitoring for people's phones and IP monitoring for their computers. It's very, very stark. The next story is the Justice Department is demanding detailed voter rolls data from more than 30 states, including names, addresses, and social security numbers, aiming to build a centralized national voter list. Officials say it's to root out illegal voting by non-citizens, despite studies showing that such fraud is virtually non-existent. It's a big deal. This administration is really going after the next elections and trying to find unique and different ways to rig them in their favor.
Yeah, and this is troubling. We keep discussing it. I think there's at least one action towards elections taken a week. And the fact that they are trying to create this nationalized, voter registrations system. Um, this is extremely also problematic and something we need to push back. Luckily, a few states have pushed back and have refused to provide them, including Pennsylvania. And so far in court, they've been successful, but this is something we really need to monitor because they're
Absolutely.
going from every angle, to try to rig next year's midterms.
Yeah, I think in another state, was it Missouri today, that passed the House, their House, the legislature, in terms of putting together their sort of gerrymandered, maps for the next election. It's very concerning stuff going on.
Yeah, Democrats would lose one seat from this.
Yeah.
So, they're doing everything again. On paper, Democrats will lose if the people stand up and vote in mass numbers, then they won't, they won't lose that seat. So,
See what happens. That is the Trump tyranny tracker for today. You had a late night last night. I'm not sure you got anything else to promote tonight, but feel free to do so if you want to share anything.
I'm trying to keep my eyes open. I really slept to 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
No, just check out our active measures series on trollbots and Russia's information warfare.
And IRA, which is so interesting. So yeah, I'm going to take a look at that. I haven't read that. We got into this week, but I will for this afternoon if I get a minute. Look forward to that, and everyone else should do the same. The unmaskingrussia.substack.com is Olga's website, where you can find the series all about the 2016 election and how Russia, disrupted that election and interfered in our democracy. And you can also catch her on TrumpTourneyTracker.substack.com. That's where you can get the Trump Tourney Tracker, a very comprehensive list, not just what we do here on the show. Here we just do 3 or 4 stories on her website. You get
40.
you 40 or so stories, and you really get a real tracking of where we are on a day-to-day basis. It's so crucial for our understanding of what's happening to democracy on a real-time basis. And Olga does a phenomenal amount of work for that. So please support her, pay for her subscriptions, and keep her shared across all your networks, because it's very important that word gets out.
And likewise for you.
Thank you so much.
A lot of good work on pushing back and against Epstein and Trump and digging into that. And
there's a lot of interesting stuff happening on Epstein today up in the Senate, which I'm going to be talking about in just over 40 minutes with Dean Blundell on the 5 Stack. Schumer's finally seems to have done something that no one expected him to do, something out of the box and gone out on the offense. Who would have thought he can actually do that? And other interesting information coming from Ron Wyden about forcing the Treasury Department and Scott Bessent to actually hand over this FinCEN documents, which contain a lot of the information we've all been looking for as to what Epstein and Trump were doing during those years. So that's all coming up in 40 minutes and 5 Stack. We'll see you then. And then we'll see you tomorrow, Olga. Have a great day. Get some rest.
Bye, you too.
Bye, everybody.